Hello, I am Pastor Steve, and I am honored that you are watching another message from R120 Ministries, which is starting right now.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Besides using that short clip from a movie, A Few Good Men, to get your attention, I think it is a good illustration for today's message. How many of you behave like Tom Cruise's character when it comes to God? Especially in times of suffering, storms, frustration. Sometimes, maybe all the time, questioning God, almost putting God on trial. Then after questioning and seeming to have no answer received from God, you lose patience with God. You explode and say, I want answers. I want the truth. I deserve the truth. I'm not saying that you can't question God. We shouldn't, but we are human. We probably are going to lose our temper, our patience, when the world is crashing down on us, crashing down on those we love. And in that moment, we may behave like Tom Cruise or like many of the people in the Bible and question God. God is used to people questioning him. I'm not saying he enjoys it. I probably wouldn't recommend it as an everyday practice. But you can find people doing it throughout the Bible. One spot in particular, the book of Job. I know most of you have probably heard about the book of Job. I would guess that a large portion of you have read the book at least once. People remember Job for his suffering and his perseverance through that suffering. But I think people forget that Job, he questioned God, challenged God about what God had done to him. I'm not judging Job. If there's anyone outside of Jesus who had the worst day than anyone else in their life, that would probably be Job. Just a reminder that in one day he lost all of his livestock, basically all of his wealth. It was just stolen. His farmhands were killed. All of his children were killed. And either in that same day or the next day, he was covered in boils, in sores. God only knows how I would have reacted, and I pray I never find out. Job, he laid it on the line a couple of times towards God. Job chapter 7, Job starts and he says, I cannot keep from speaking. I must express my anguish. My bitter soul must complain. What are people that you should make so much of us, that you should think of us so often? For you examine us every morning and test us every moment. Why won't you leave me alone, at least long enough for me to swallow? If I have sinned, what have I done to you, O watcher of all humanity? Why make me your target? Am I a burden to you? Why not just forgive my sin and take away my guilt? For soon I will die. When you look for me, I will be gone. In Job 13, Job continues again, O God, grant me these two things, and then I will be able to face you. Remove your heavy hand from me, and don't terrify me with your awesome presence. Now summon me, and I will answer, or let me speak to you, and you reply. Sounds a little like, I want answers. I want the truth. Job continues, tell me what I have done wrong. Show me my rebellion and my sin. Why have you turned away from me? Why do you treat me as your enemy. Again, I want answers. I want the truth. See, the Bible had a scene from the Few Good Men thousands of years before Hollywood even thought it up. But how many times have you asked some of those same questions that Job asked? How many times have you demanded answers, demanded a reply from God when you have asked, why have you made me your target? Why have you turned away from me? What have I done wrong? And if I've done something wrong, if I have sinned, why not just forgive me? Now, I've asked those questions more than probably should as a person of faith. And the answers we get, well, let's turn back to the book of Job, where we find God's answers, God's turn. God will answer Job, not necessarily his questions. But God, just like Jack Nicholson's character, asks and warns Tom Cruise before giving his answer, God does the same to Job. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing, but just listen as I read what God says. In Job 38, then the Lord answered Job from a whirlwind. Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Can I hear what God's saying? You are questioning me? You want answers? Well, then brace yourself. And I like what God says. He said, brace yourself like a man, because it almost implies like he sees Job as a whining child. He tells him, brace yourself like a man and get ready, because I want to know from you. For questioning my ways and criticizing how I run things, have you considered how well you would manage the entire universe? How you would have even thought it up? Job 38, we continue to read what God says to Job. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? What supports its foundations, and who laid its cornerstone as the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Now that's just the beginning. I would recommend you read this chapter, because God poses over 60 questions to Job, asking about all of creation. Now, in the middle of those questions, Job does get a little say in there. Job replies by saying, how can I reply to you? Basically, Job's saying, I have no answers to your questions. God's questions, all those 60 plus questions, cover the inanimate and the animate of the universe. All those questions summing up the big question of who created the universe, who completely understands the universe, and who controls the universe, you or me? But God never answers Job's questions about the suffering or the loss that Job just endured. God does not explain why or the mystery of suffering. And it probably doesn't sit well, does it? Probably makes you uncomfortable. May even make you tense. Because we want answers. We may even demand answers. Especially to the why questions. Why us? Why them? Why does this have to be this way? And why do we have to endure this suffering? Perhaps a more personal illustration using my own life. I would like to know some things from my parents. I have some why questions for them to answer. Why would you ever dress us like this? The picture, that vest and those pants. They look like not even a good sofa, but a really bad sofa from the 60s. And that little guy in front, right up there, that little guy, that's me. I look like I'm wearing some suit from a retiree from Florida that shrunk in the wash. I mean, were you looking to have us beat up by every bully in the neighborhood? And that far picture over there. Why'd you make us eat meals like a scene from The Godfather? Why the curfews? Why all the chores? Why did you do the stuff you did in raising me? And that picture, the picture in the lower down there, the one with the kid flying through the air, that's me. I imagine if someone was driving by while that picture was taken, they would have said, "Why is that man throwing his child into the leaves? Why do you raise them the way you did?" Now, my parents, especially my father would have said, "You question us? Were you there when Steve was born? Were you there when he split his head open by running into a wall?" Yeah, I did that. Were you by his side in the emergency room, waiting outside the surgery when he had to have emergency appendectomy? Were you there when he didn't come home on time, staying up, worrying? Were you there when he totaled the car and almost went into a ravine? No. But you see, I know Steve. I know our child, and I know how to care for him. I know how to raise him, how to love him, and sometimes that love included disciplining him and setting rules and sometimes allowing him to skin his knee. Why? Because we know his potential and we want the best for him. We want him to become the best he can be. And to me, when I was younger and probably asked some of those why questions, the answer sometimes was, because we are your parents and we know what's best. How many of you have heard that from your parents? How many have said that as parents to your children? And why do you say it? Well, our parents said it, and as much as we may not want to admit it, looking back, our parents were probably right. Some of the time. Maybe even most of the time. They did know what was best for us, just as you know what's best for your children. So, as much as I just picked on my mother and father, they did know what was best for their 3 children, and hey, at least one of them listened and turned out just fine. Why do parents sometimes avoid the question and say, because we are your parents, we know what's best? You'll understand when you're older, when you have kids of your own. Because parents have more experience in life and understand things. They have knowledge based on that experience, based on life, based on their mistakes and their successes. Parents have a fuzzy picture of how the future may turn out based on the path or the decisions their children make. And children, of course, do not understand this, or they can't see it in that moment. So the question is, if we can accept that this is what happens as earthly parents. And earthly parents are far from perfect, but they try and do their best. Why can't we accept it from our Heavenly Father? Our Heavenly Father who is perfect, who has greater wisdom than we could ever fathom, who does not have a fuzzy picture of the future, but knows the future perfectly, clearly. God is saying to Job and to all of us, what is done is for the best. And who would know what's best? You or me? And if you question who knows what's best or how I do things, then consider all of creation, all of it. Consider who made it and who runs it. God is saying, I know my children. I know how to care for them, how to love them. And sometimes that love includes discipline because I see their potential. I want them to do their best, to be their best. I want the best for them. And sometimes because of that, God's answer is, I am God. And because I am God, because I am your Heavenly Father, I know best. You'll understand when you are older. Now Job had the faith to hear, see, and understand this. This is why he finally replies to God in Job 42. Job answered God, I'm convinced you can do anything and everything. Nothing or no one can upset your plans. You asked, who is muddying the water ignorantly, confusing the issue, second-guessing my purposes? I admit it. I was the one. I babbled on about things far beyond me, made small talk about wonders way over my head. You told me, listen and let me do the talking, let me ask the questions, and you give the answers. I admit I once lived by rumors of you. Now I have it all firsthand, from my own eyes and ears. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'll never do that again, I promise. I'll never live on crusts of hearsay and crumbs of rumor. When you have that time of questioning God and asking for answers, may you remember that He may ask you, can you handle the truth? When He does, may your faith give you the strength to handle the truth and allow you to see God as your Father, to see Him and understand Him like you understand your parents, or like you are as a parent. Understand so that you will take your Heavenly Father's hand and trust Him. So as you grow older, you may see He does know what's best. He is in control, and His compassion never fails. Because He tells us the truth is, I am God. And because I am God, I am your Heavenly Father, and I love you deeper than you can ever understand. And I know best. When you are older, and perhaps not until we see each other in heaven, perhaps then you'll understand. I hope you enjoyed this message and found it spiritually uplifting. If you did, please like and follow R120 Ministries on Facebook and subscribe to R120 Ministries YouTube channel. Also, we have a few weeks left in our live video Bible study on prayer via Zoom. If you would like to join us, click the Visit Group button on our Facebook page for more details. And of course, I hope you'll join us next week for another spiritual message. God bless. Be well. Be safe. And remember, not only does God love you, but I love you because of Christ in me, and there is nothing you can do about it. Have a great week.